Welcome to the Robert Hunt Financial Market Update. It's your host, Robert Hunt, where I look at the week's financial news. They're going to be a bit confusing, misleading, and take you, of course, up to make it actionable, understandable, and clear. What a week. Therefore, what a show. Some excellent Wall Street Journal and some time for Robert's Corner. You've got to petition the producers, the directors. You got to say, can we do a little Robert's Corner? They acquiesced, and we will have time for that excellent lineup. We've got a Shoeshine boy story, Spencer Jacob. We're going to talk about a market top. Do you feel it? Is it a bit top heavy, particularly with all these IPOs coming down the line? We then look at just a tragic story. I read it, and this doesn't happen a lot, but I was legitimately sad at the end of reading the story. But this is a headline, The Cattle Empire That Turned Out to Be a Giant Ponzi Scheme. Really sad story about a man named Brian McLean who lost it all and lost a bunch of money for everybody else. And then we can go into Robert's Corner, where we're going to discuss the implications of technology and financial planning and what it is you go to a financial advisor for. What is it that I say I do here and anyone else does here? So at the top, headline, a sign of the market top. Tell us your Shoeshine boy story. Now, this is a Wall Street Journal section. Mr. Spencer Jacob. He's got a great intro. He says this: there's a word for an investor who sells at the exact top of the market. You know what that word is, listener? You know what Mr. Jacob says that word is? He says it's a liar. That's a liar. That's the word for an investor who sells at the exact top of the market. They're a liar. So he explains. With three of the largest initial public offerings on tap, that's Anthropic, OpenAI, and SpaceX, all of which have an artificial intelligence component, all of which are close. I mean, SpaceX is over $1 trillion, maybe $1.8 trillion market cap, and Anthropic and OpenAI are just under $1 trillion. With a T, again, that's with a T, trillion. Record market concentration and valuations higher than they have been 99% of the time. Is this one of those peaks? Doubtless you've heard this line before. I'm reading other articles. It's not in the show notes. It's not in the lineup, but SpaceX employees who worked in the cafeteria, and I love to hear this, believe it or else. They worked in the cafeteria. They got stock equity for their service. These people will be millionaires, multimillionaires for their work at SpaceX if they started early, and if the IPO goes off as planned at $1.8 trillion. That's why people start getting skittish. They start thinking, that first of all, absolutely jazzed for those people on the cafeteria line. But that's where people start going, what is going on here? Is this getting a little toppy, a little frothy? Am I a fool for clicking the buy button? I want to first address his salient comment that there's a word for investors who sell at the exact top of the market, a liar, and affirm that it is not an errand you want to go on. Pick the top. Don't do it. Anytime I've tried to pick a top or I've tried to find someone who could pick a top, Warren Buffett's got a great line. He says he's never met anyone who's successfully market timed, and he's never met anyone who's successfully market timed. Now, that doesn't mean there aren't purported market timers who have a track record. Now, that track record can be managed. There's a great story told this way. A gentleman one day received a letter in the mail from a purported market timer. And this market timer said, trust me, the market will go up this Friday. It will be up. It won't be down. It will be up. And the gentleman kind of chuckles. Who could ever do that? And the guy was right. He gets another letter the next week on a Thursday, and he says, I promise you on this Friday the market will go down. I promise you. And the market went down. All of a sudden, anybody can be right twice. Next week, gets the letter on Thursday. He says, I promise and I predict on Friday the market will go up. And it goes up. He's right. He's thinking, oh, man, this is interesting, right? Fourth time it happens, he's right. Fifth time it happens, he's right. By the time the sixth time come out, this guy's ready to give him every nickel he has. There's a gentleman sending me a letter in the mail. He can predict every single time the market goes up or down. How wonderful. Well, how's he doing it, listener? How's he doing it? Well, the moral of this story is this. He actually had about 120 people that he started sending a letter to. Half of those people, he'd say the market goes up, half that goes down. So that means he's got 60 left. Same exercise. Half goes up, half goes down. He's got 30 left. Same exercise. Half goes up, half goes down. He's got 15 left. By the time at the end of the rope, he's got about 3 people who he successfully predicted whether the market will go up or down. And you're one of those 3. That dynamic can happen with market timing. There's no way to investigate these market timers. And if there is a way, you generally see that it doesn't end well. But be very suspicious of market timers. That letter in the mail story always hit me, and I remember thinking, ooh, I actually could see myself falling prey to that. I wouldn't have thought someone would have the nerve, the audacity, the conniving sense to send out 120 letters, half of which predict markets up, half of which predict it down, and then the people you're wrong with, you just don't send them again. You only keep sending them to the people you were right, and all of a sudden it culls the herd. By the end of it, someone's gotten a letter that 6 times in a row you've predicted the market, and then wouldn't you know it, give me $1 million, give me $500,000, give me whatever. That happens at a different level and in a different capacity in financial markets all the time. All the time. Whether they be soothsayers or advisors or funds. Hey, the fund did great over this previous 10 years. The fund did great over the previous 5 years. Would you know they had 50 funds in the fund family? 5 survived. And you are the investor in one of them. There was an active fund being promoted to someone, and I went back and I looked at the past 10 years. And normally when people promote an active fund, it almost assuredly has beat the index. Because why would you promote a fund that hadn't beat the index? This fund had trailed the index over every time period. 10, 5, 3, 1, year to date. Trailed the index every time period. That's why I'm asking them, why is it that they're promoting this active fund that I had a little bit of respect for them. I said, well, good on them. They didn't trot out the fund that, the 1 of 10 that survived, that survivorship bias. They trotted out the one that failed. Dadgummit, we promote active funds and they failed. But we're honest about it. I can respect a man that does that. I can respect an outfit that does that. Willing to show I've got an inferior product, but I'm transparent about its inferiority. Please buy. I get that. Normally what happens, though, is they promote an active fund that beats the market. And you kind of scratch your head and you go, man, I wonder how they did that. I wonder how they chose that one. Well, same dynamic. Maybe they had 10 funds at the beginning of the decade, and by the end of the decade, there's 1 or 2 that beat the market, and they go on a marketing spree with that one. Here's Fund XYZ. Whew. So, is the market toppy? Oh, goodness, who knows? Who knows? What do my instincts say? My instincts are always wrong, but yeah, I think it's all sorts of toppy. 3 IPOs, close to $1 trillion. That doesn't seem cheap. Valuations at sky high. Don't listen to your instincts. Override them. Keep your head down. And then this is a story that just made me sad. Cattle empire that turned out to be a giant Ponzi scheme. It made me sad because with any sort of financial calamity like this, there's a deep personal human cost, and there was in this case. Investor and bank loans fueled Brian McLean's house of cards. And this is something we got to be honest about. For those of us in the religious community, as I am, and who are Christian, as I am, this gentleman, Mr. McLean, promoted himself as a Christian. This gentleman who... And I say promoted. Part of the reason this gentleman ended up, the whole thing was a Ponzi scheme. He said he had a bunch of cattle and he didn't, and defrauded a bank. But part of the appeal for people was this kind of good old boy handshake, goes to church deal. And very disheartening. So he said he had an 80,000 head of cattle operation. He got a $50 million loan from an ag bank and $120 million from investors. That's nuts. So he's living in a big house. Wouldn't you know it, none of it was real. So effectively, he was taking in money and paying it out. Turns out he only had about 9,000 animals. This guy's telling the bank he's got 80,000. What just really blew my mind, the bank was not checking the collateral, the cattle. And now this city boy Robert Hunt over here, I read the article. It's hard to collateralize cattle. It's not easy. They move around. You can put them on another field. I don't care. That is wild to me that for years they wouldn't audit it. And by the time they did audit it, they realized the game was up. Once his loan hit $50 million, this is a bank that was headquartered in Europe. They sent over the head European guy. He comes over and goes, "Oh yeah, we're cooked. Our money's gone." And now there's this just litany of lawsuits. Everybody's suing each other. The gentleman took his life. So by the time the sheriff came by his house, Mr. McLean took his life. I just hate it. So what? Of course, tons of lessons. Ultimately, just sadness at the outcome of this man taking his own life and all the money that was lost. Like a lot of these things, what do you think it started with? The promise of insane returns that everyone believed. He attracted all these investors with partnership agreements that promised annualized returns of 30%. And he said basically these are locked in, guys. He purported to use futures contracts just to lock in the profit. He's all good. That should have been a red flag the size of Texas if someone promises you 30% like it's nothing. And then they say it's locked in. Yeah, right. But hey, compassion for the investor. Good old boy, handshake, cattle. What could go wrong? I've actually heard. I went out to Fort Worth years ago and heard a testimonial. Guy got defrauded by a cattleman just like this. And the other guy, sadly, this other guy took his life. So cattle must be hard to track. But boy, howdy, I've heard enough stories about cattle now where I'd want one of these RFID tags on every single one. I'd put a drone. I'd want cameras everywhere. And I recognize that may not be realistic. But they just can't find the money. There actually aren't a bunch of houses everywhere. He just kind of paid in, took in money, paid it out to people to keep it going, raise more money. So some of these folks have to give the money back, and the investors are suing the bank's suing a bunch of other people. They're saying the bank should have had a much better control in place so that he could have never gotten this fraud this far, which of course they're the victim of fraud as well. What are the lessons? It's almost always the same story. Someone promises 30% returns, promises it, and people believe it. And in this instance, normally lenders don't get caught up in this. Normally lenders they've been burned so many times with their risk management people, but they go through the story. This guy's books were sloppy. Bankers kind of looked past it. This guy's processes were sloppy. Banker looked past. The bank kept increasing his credit line. Even after they do these reviews where they don't check the collateral, it just blew my mind. What it made me think is, goodness, success in America, anybody can do it. This guy was sloppy. And he sadly was a criminal, but he had a ton of money. He was able to borrow a ton of money. So, no reason to defraud or cheat anybody. Just do it straight up. You have these banks who are just handing you money. Eventually this guy's personal life was falling apart eventually. So anyway, I won't mention it. I know grandchildren may be in the room, but he did some things on the personal side that were not great and were not moves of integrity as well. And anyway, if someone promises you returns, run. There's one return promise. It's U.S. Treasuries. Everything else needs to get audited and should be scrutinized. Anyone that tells you that returns are easy, again, huge red flag. A 30% return should elicit laughter from the crowd. Doesn't mean people can't do it, but to promise it. It happens. Sometimes you get great returns like that. And maybe you hope to get a return like that, but there are a ton of disclosures. Hey, we may not be able to do this. The idea that this said, oh yeah, not hard. 30%. We'll put the return in the partnership agreement. Trust but verify. even if they're a Presbyterian. Trust, but verify. Then in closing, Robert's Corner. I know I've talked about it a lot. I don't think I can overhype it, though. What is it that you use a financial advisor for, listener? If you do. I think it's radically changing and has in the past year, particularly in the past 6 months. So there was a time where a financial advisor was an answer engine. Gee whiz, what do I do? What do I save for retirement? Am I on track for retirement? What am I supposed to do? I can plug all this into a large language model now. In fact, I can do one better for you in Google Sheets it's a free deal. They now have, in my paid service, I bet it'll be free in the future, there's a Gemini integration. This Gemini integration, you simply ask, you've got the data there. You just talk to it. Hey, how's this person doing for retirement? What's the 529? What's the 529 plan looking like? And you're just talking to AI. I'm doing this in all the meetings. I say all the meetings. I say most of the meetings where appropriate. But you as the consumer, I really want you to think about this. There's never been a better time to be a self-directed investor. Never. Never. And I recognize that the use of artificial intelligence is not distributed evenly, and the proclivity for its use. Some people may just have a personal aversion to use it. I understand that. I've got my suspicions as well in the area of security and the quality of answers. But I got to tell you, it's an incredible solution for the world for financial planning and for financial advice. Historically, what did you have to do for financial advice? Let's go back 5 years, that ancient period, so long ago. Maybe your Google search box, you were reading articles, and or typically what was happening was all relational. Hey, your uncle told you to do this, or your friend at church, or your bowling buddy, or your golf buddy, or your coworker, and it was anecdote. Yeah, you should invest in the. Now your first stop should be the large language model, Gemini, ChatGPT, Claude, whatever. And now you can get to the point where you can have a folder of all your files. You can do this. Have a folder of all your files. Start riffing. Hey, how am I doing? What do you think? Compare me to peers. Ask a follow-up. Is this a good, am I in the right spot investing-wise? Are these wise investments? What's so nice about these models today, and I'll be watching them, they're not being paid on commission. They're not in the advertiser's pockets. What's so tough for us humans is we have mortgages to pay, tuition bills, and so we've got to make money. And so for a financial advisor, the great way to make money and more money is to sell high-priced products. So wouldn't you know it, a lot of the solutions from humans end up being very expensive for the consumer. Not all the time, but a lot of the time. These large language models, they're pulling in data. And what I love is the AI is a huge fan of low cost. Low cost. They can synthesize the data and come up with an answer that is better than humans, faster than humans. So if you're going to a financial advisor, you've got to ask yourself some tough questions. What am I going for? If they're not answer engines, what am I going for? I think what you would go for today is insurance a little bit. Hey, let's double check this. I've seen mistakes, not by the AI, but where the human didn't always provide adequate information for the AI. And then I'd say that's the first thing. And there's a little bit of insurance. I'm going to human to double check. And then execution risk. We're not there technologically yet where you have some AI agent going off and executing all these trades or moving money around. I think there's execution risk for a lot of people. And then I call it the personal trainer thing, not just execution risk, but insurance to ensure, to be sure that you actually do what needs to be done in your finances. It can take a human. Your large language model probably won't, although maybe in the future they will, hammer you. So I see this as an incredible golden age for financial advice. You've never had it so good, listener. It used to be awful trying to figure out an answer to, should I invest in a 529? What about an UTMA? What about, you now for free have incredible advice at your fingertips. Be sure you use it well and take ownership of your finances, knowing all the while that you need to keep those costs low, keep your investing simple, and keep your time horizon long, because that is It's what's going to give you the best shot on your investing journey.